Doc. Hey, Doc. Did you find some mud? Huh? Did you find some mud, buddy? Oh, no!
Well, hey guys, welcome back to Meadow Green Farm. So today we're going to talk about the farrowing experience. This is our first farrowing experience on the farm and for us as a family. We kind of reviewed in the last video. It's been a couple weeks since we did a last video. Today is December 23rd. And in the last video, we talked about kind of the first two negative things that we had about the farrowing experience, which was our fault, completely our fault. The first one was Loretta, our guilt, being too young to actually be farrowing. The second one was her being a little bit overweight. So at the time that she farrowed, all three of our pigs were just a touch overweight, our two gilts more than our boar. At this point, we've corrected that. We've started limiting their feed and started bringing their weights down. But at the time, her being a little overweight actually negatively impacted her being able to give birth to the pigs. So we had to assist a lot more than we really wanted to. So we'll talk about that in just a second. The third one is, obviously it was unplanned. And at this time of year, it is very difficult to find people that actually want to buy feeder piglets. It's, like I said before, December 23rd. People are strapped for cash. It's the holidays. People are traveling. They're not really home wanting to take care of piglets or bring them home. So with that being said, I'm going to talk about our solution for point number 3. But let's just jump into our farrowing experience. We'll show a little bit of video of the piglets. We don't have too much video of the birthing. I will show the first one. So I'll give you a little bit of warning if you don't want to see that. We captured the first piglet being born, which Loretta gave birth to on her own, unassisted. What happened with this first piglet was actually kind of funny. I mentioned it in the last video. I was doing the electrical work, and as soon as I got the electrical work done in the barn, I heard her kind of moaning, making some noise, whatnot. So I went in to check on her, and I could tell that she was in labor. So I called my wife and said, "Hey, Loretta's about to give birth. You might want to get up here if you want to see it." I set up the camera, I set up the light, turned on the light in the barn. You can see me walk away in the frame, and as soon as I walk away and the dust starts to settle, Loretta has her first little piglet. So I came back a few moments later, picked up the piglet, helped clean it off, and gave it to her, made sure that the piglet, got the first bit of colostrum out of Loretta. And after the first piglet was born, we started getting a little concerned because it should be about 15 minutes to a half hour between farrowing piglets. Now, being her first time, I didn't expect that to be right on schedule. It shouldn't, in my opinion, be typical being her first time. But after about an hour, we were getting kind of concerned. And thankfully, I have a great wife with small hands and arms. And she went in Loretta and actually pulled the second piglet out. So I think that Loretta would have really struggled to give birth to anything past the first one, given her weight situation in her first time. So my wife Gabrielle actually went in, she pulled out the second piglet. We waited, that was a gilt. So our first piglet was a gilt. The second piglet was a gilt, and then we waited about another hour and a half, almost 2 hours, and another one hadn't come out yet. So she ended up pulling out a third one, which was a little boar. And then we waited again about another 2 hours. So at this point, it was nearing probably about 11:30, midnight, something like that. And Gabrielle ended up having to go in again after watching Loretta in labor for about 2 hours and pull out the fourth one. And we knew at that point, we had talked about the problem with her being young, and we knew at that point, this is why you really want to wait till that gilt is, a year old at least before she starts farrowing piglets. Give her a chance to get the weight proper, the frame size proper, let her hips kind of spread out and stuff like that. So we started to realize the error of her ways. But she was still in labor, and to be honest, at that point, we were pretty exhausted. We had been up here for a couple hours. We didn't know how many piglets she was going to have. I expected 4 to 5. And to be honest, I kind of figured at that point that she was probably done. Unfortunately, when we came up in the morning, she had given birth to a stillborn, and then we pulled another stillborn out of her. Later on that day, while I was at work, about noon, she gave birth again to another stillborn. So the last 3 were actually stillborn, which is very unfortunate. But again, I think it's just a byproduct of her being young and her frame not being big enough to support the 7 piglets and give birth. All right, so let's get to the fun part, and that is the actual 4 piglets that we do have. The first thing that we noticed was actually pretty adorable, and that is the boar looks just like his dad, looks like our boar, Doc. So when you look at the boar, he's got a lot of white on him. He looks exactly like Doc, and the gilts look just like Loretta, just a little bit of white on their face and pretty black all the way over. So that was the first thing that we noticed. We thought it was pretty interesting. Right off the bat, they were pretty playful. They were pretty lively, which is good, which meant they were healthy. And up until today, they've all been really healthy. We had one gilt who got an injury to her tail, and we ended up having to dock her tail, and it got a little bit of infection. We actually had to give her a little bit of antibiotic just to kind of stave off the infection because it wasn't going away on its own. After about 5 days of antibiotics, she actually cleared up the infection on her own, which is great. There's a lot of controversy about antibiotic use, but my personal opinion is in this case, where her being so young and the infection not going away after about 4 or 5 days, it looked like a little pocket of infection on her backside. You got to use antibiotics. I mean, if it's a choice between using antibiotics or losing the piglet, I'm going to choose antibiotics every single time. Other than that, we have not used any antibiotics on any of our pigs or any of our animals. We just haven't had the need to. So that was been the only little incident since the piglets were born. They've been very healthy, like I said, playing around. We had the opportunity to have a bunch of people up here at one point when we castrated our boar. So I got my first experience for castrating the boar. But like I said, we had a bunch of people up here, and it was pretty neat to see everybody up here at the barn kind of experiencing the little piglets. They are adorable. We've been going in the pen every day. I go in at least 2 or 3 times a day. I sit down in the hay with the piglets and kind of get them used to, being around the humans and being around the people that take care of them and establishing that relationship, so that if we sell them, they go to a different home and they're going to be used to humans. Loretta is very gentle. She did not mind whatsoever us going in and sitting and playing with the piglets. For the most part, she just kind of leaves us alone and lets us play. The only part she really got upset was when we took the gilt out to give her the antibiotics. That was always chaotic, but give her the antibiotics, put her back in, and then after that, within 5 minutes, they're back to eating, and she was good. So luckily, we've had a great experience, with the farrowing. At this point, we have our boar. I talked a little bit about our boar escaping. We finally, at one point, he got out and he was running around our field, and I just said, you know what, it's close enough. We're a week away from when I was going to put him in. Let's just put him in with our other gilt, get it over with, and that way I can take down his paddock and clean it all up. And he's been pretty happy ever since. Let's just put it that way. So let's talk about where we are today. So like I said before, it's December 23rd. It's about 60 degrees outside today. It is a beautiful day out to get some work done. What we need to do is actually get a weaning pen set up for the piglets and separate them for Loretta. We're going to give her 1 week to kind of rest and start drying up her milk. And then we're going to put her in with Reba and Doc, our boar. In the meantime, we're going to put the 4 piglets in a weaning pen. So my plan right now is to actually build a 16 by 16 weaning pen out of cattle panels. So we're going to grab 4 of the cattle panels from the garden that aren't in use right now. We have a bunch of old T-posts hanging around, so we're going to grab some of those. And I actually brought Doc's little hut that I made for him up here by the barn. We're going to put that inside the 16 by 16 weaning stall and get everything set up, and then bring the 4 piglets in. We're going to put the weaning stall in right in front of me right here next to the chicken coop. That way they are right by the feed and water. It's easy to take care of them in the morning and at night. It's right up against the electric fence, so I can start electric fence training them. And over here on the side of the barn is actually the best place around the barn for a windbreak. So I am going to close up half of the hut that Doc was using, just so they have a little interior area to get to and keep out of the wind. But over here is a nice place. We got a good windbreak, so I'm going to go to the garden, grab the cattle panels, grab some T-posts. Gabrielle's on her way up. Let's build a weaning pen. While we're at it, I should introduce you to our newest little additions to the barn. So with all the feed and everything we have in the barn, we've had a problem with rats and mice. So we found somebody on Facebook Marketplace giving away a couple little kitties, and This is Tango. So Tango's a boy. They're brother and sister, and Mango's over there in her bed. So we have a brother and sister, Mango and Tango, and in a couple weeks, hopefully they'll be big enough to come out of this room. Right now we have a little room with a heat lamp just to kind of keep them nice and cozy and warm. And in a couple weeks we'll let them out, and hopefully they start hunting all the mice and rats and stuff that we have in here and keep them at bay. But for right now, I think somebody's really enjoying having a couple little kittens in the barn.
As soon as you start petting her, she won't stop purring.
Yeah. Mango is very personable. All right, so we brought in the cattle panels. We got 2 helpers over here. This is the area where they're going. Got our T-post ready and our wire. So I don't think we need much more than that. We're gonna go ahead, pound our first T-post in there, lay out the cattle panel. We're just building a box here. It's pretty simple, not a lot of instructions. Just sit back for a minute and watch this work.
He didn't know which way you're going. Doc?
Yeah.
Oh, I bet he loves it.
Yeah, he is. Like, he's making watery noises like he's drinking.
Mm.
All right, so moving right along here, we've got all of our walls up. We got a corner right here where we can get in and out of the pen. Everything is secure. So Gabrielle's getting the water ready. We have a food trough we're gonna throw in here, and while she's doing that, I'm gonna grab these poly stakes, get them in. I've already shut off the fence. We're gonna tie into the electric fence right behind here, and then we'll grab the piglets and get them into their new home. All right, so we tapped into our existing fence over here, just ran it through the cattle panels. We're doing 2 strands right over here to train them, as you can see. So this runs all the way around, stops at the other side of the hut on the opposite side over here. So it doesn't run behind the hut, but the hut's up against the cattle panels. The only concern I really have is them trying to burrow out, but I think with the electric fence right here, we're going to be okay. Well, I got good news and bad news. The good news, the pigs are in their new home. The bad news is I had to take the electric fence down because the first girl we put in ran into the electric fence. It snapped her a couple dozen times and she just started freaking out, running into the cattle panels. So I said, I'm going to take this down for now, and what I'll do is I'll come back in maybe a week or so, a couple days, let them get used to the pen first, and then I'll come back and put the poly wire back up. But for now, I think that they just got to get used to their surroundings. Also, Loretta got out. That was fun. She was out for about 20 minutes. We finally corralled her and got her back home, but piglets are all in their new home. They are starting to settle down. Hey, girl. And of course, Mama's not happy. It's to be expected, but it's part of the process. So, like I said before, we're gonna give her a week of rest, and then she'll be going in the stall down at the end. I was going to put her in with the barrow right here. I thought maybe them together would keep each other company, but with him going to the butcher in a week, I said, well, it's easier to get him out alone and into the trailer for the butcher and not have to move or keep her in the stalls. So I don't know, she's not where I wanted her to be, but I'll give her a week of rest and dry up and get ready for round number 2. That's gonna be a wrap on today's video, guys. I'm glad we got him moved. But what's next on the agenda? So Reba's in there. Again, April, she'll be farrowing. Right now it's pretty quiet. We didn't do a video the last 2 weeks because it's been very quiet. With the holidays and everything going on, there's not a lot going on at the farm. We have everybody up here in the barn all together. I'm going to show probably next week's video what we did for the room for the cats and to try and split off the chicken coop and get set up for them. So we did merge all of our chickens into one flock, moved them all about 2 weeks ago. I just kind of felt like I needed to introduce the red stars with the cinnamon queens and the golden comets and get them all put into one group. That way in the spring I can put them all in the same tractor and we don't get some infighting. So I can say one thing about Waylon. He is quite a husband. He's been very good to all the hens. He's very protective. He makes sure that they get the food first, and he kept the infighting to a minimum, so I'm very happy. He's such a good rooster. That's gonna be it for today's video, guys. I hope you liked the video. If you did, hit the like button. It helps us out a lot, and if you haven't subscribed, please do so. We'd love to have you along, but we hope you have a great day. Yeah, you know I was talking about you. Two boys of the farm just hanging out.